Hello and welcome to another episode of Game Theory, the #1 DraftKings prep show in all of the land. I am your host Monk, aka the Monkmatician, and in this very episode, guys, we are going to deep dive into all stats DraftKings related for UFC London, headlined by Alexander Volkov and Tom Aspinall. There are some absolute bangers on this card. But first, let's take care of some business. Go ahead and go to check out teamriseorfall.com, guys. If you play any kind of DFS at all for any sport whatsoever, there are a ton of experts over there and a huge community on the Discord that are passing picks out daily. They're passing out lineups, every kind, stats, anything you can think of that's DFS related. They are taking care of it over on teamriseorfall.com. So be sure to check that website out. Use code MONK and save yourself $10. Check out the Wednesday show coming up tomorrow, the 16th of March 2022 on Pub Sports Radio. You will find me, Uncle Wheezy, DFS by the Numbers, and Luke, SWR Betting, over on Pub Sports Radio, breaking down the DraftKings card, giving you out value picks, plays, all kinds of stuff like that, lineups. Be sure to check that out. And most importantly, check out the MMA Engine, MMAengine.com. Or MMA-engine.com, I believe. It will be up in just a few weeks, guys, so be on the lookout for that. Give us a follow on Twitter and YouTube. Now, let's get into just 2 minutes on what happened last week. Santos Ankalaev. Here was the optimal lineup: Miranda Maverick, Drew Dober, Khalil Roundtree Jr., Cody Brundage, Damon Jackson, and Guido Canetti. 49,700 for salary. 626.82 was your optimal score. Computer Monk had a decent night, went 9 of 14 in picks for a cumulative total on the year of just over 60%, so need to work on that. But hey, 60% is not bad for a computer that doesn't know anything about UFC. So it did correctly pick the Guido Canetti underdog win and the Damon Jackson underdog win, so I am super happy about that. One more notable thing, AJ Fletcher scoring more points in a loss than his opponent Matthew Semmelsberger in a win, so that is a notable thing that did happen. Other than that, guys, not too much. Oh yeah, Song Yadong left off the optimal lineup, scoring over 105.6 points, the third highest score on the card, or fourth highest, I should say. Looks that way. Got left off of the optimal lineup, so that is notable. $9,200. Miranda Maverick's score was too high, and a few underdogs put up some big scores, so somebody had to get left off. So, anyways, let's get down to business, guys. Let's start breaking down some fights. This is happening now. We're not living in the past. We are focusing on now, so let's get right into it. First fight of the night, Muhammad Mokaev going against Cody Durden. And these fights are, the order of these fights are current as of Marcel Dorf's last posting, which was about 11 hours ago. So that is what I'm working with here. Muhammad Mokaev going against Cody Durden. Flyweight fight, first fight of the night. Let's see here. I have no stats on Mokaev. He has no Dana White Contender Series fights, no UFC fights of any kind. So you're gonna have to watch your tape on this guy. $9,100. So you're thinking, whoa, this guy has no experience in the UFC. Why is he so high? Big time wrestler, very high pace. Yeah, be sure to watch your fight tape on this guy. Cody Durden, $7,100. What do you get for that? He has a decent ass whoop index, never been knocked down, but never knocked anyone down. He's putting on a tremendous, let me see if I can move this here, a tremendous pace, 4 points per minute. That is the 5th highest pace on the entire card. 93 points in his one win in the UFC so far. He is 1-1-1 so far into his UFC career. Giving up only 2.35 points a minute for a huge 1.65 raw DraftKings points differential. He is coming in, $600 under his average salary. Has an okay value of just over 7. Let's see here. So a decent score. Puts on a decent pace. Cody Durden here for 7,100. I like a lot of these numbers. They're well over what you would expect from that low of a salary. Going against an unproven guy, whether, he is the hot prospect of the week, 21 years old, Muhammad Mokaev, supposedly going to come in and wrestle Cody Durden's balls off here. So we will see about that. Should be an interesting matchup. We're going to see if he's all hype or if there's actually something there. A little bit of salary voodoo. Let's see. The first fight of the night makes the optimal lineup 45.1%. That is not great. 9th best out of all fights used. And the weight class, flyweight class, a very low weight class to make the opt. While women's flyweight is number 1 weight class, the men's flyweight number 11, 46.88%. So not great there. Cody Durden, when he won by decision, 93.17. That's what we kind of discussed. He did get subbed in his UFC loss in the first round, so that is not good. These rankings, again, not gospel, but more of a reference for me, but kind of just a reference to see how good they are on the card, you know, comparatively. But here are some relevant fight stats. Cody Durden, able to control almost 85% of the grappling time in his 3 fights so far. So a pretty good number there. Muhammad Mokaev, not a great strength of schedule. You want these numbers to be about 70 to 75. He is sub 60 in all 3 categories, plus no defeats. He is an undefeated fighter. Tapology has him at 5-0. UFC and everyone else has him at 6-0. So I'm going with Tapology. They list one of his fights as an exhibition. I don't know if that's wrong or not, but yeah, even his fights here are all listed. I have him as having 6 fights, so even I messed that up. But anyways, Cody Durden, strength of schedule about 10 points higher in every single category, but he does have, he is 3-1-1, I should say, in his last 5. Just coming off a win against Aori, where he made some not optimal comments after the fight. Let's see, lost to Jimmy Flick, and a draw against Chris Gutierrez might be his best showing. And Computer Monk thinks he won that fight. 3.85 ass whoop index, so pretty decent showing against Chris Gutierrez there. Raw DraftKings points per minute for Cody Durden, well above his opponents as we discussed, and trending up. And here are my projections. Whatever you think is going to happen in the fight, here's how I think it will score. And then the DraftKings visual recap. Not much to look at here because we only have one graph. So to compare it to nothing really is meaningless. And then the aggregate win-loss and finish percentages for their professional career on the left and the UFC career on the right. So this is an absolute banger fight for the first fight of the night. I don't know if people, I'm not saying people are sleeping on Cody Durden by any means, because I don't think it's like that. I think Mokaev will probably come in and win here. But as far as DraftKings go, I'm going to have Cody Durden salaried. $7,100. Mokaev is not a great option at $9,100 when it comes to salary voodoo, only making the optimal 20% of the time, only 22% of the time in wins. So not a great salary to play. In fact, maybe the second worst out of all salaries. I'm definitely going to take a stab on Cody Durden. The upside is there. The wrestling upside is there for sure. Where is he at? Let's see. 1.35 takedown points per minute. 0.71 control time points per minute. You got to give that a stab. So I will be rostering Cody Durden. I'll of course have some Mokaev as well, but I'll probably be under the field on him. He is the hot prospect, so I might throw in some variants here. Next fight of the night, Nathaniel Wood going against Vince Morales. Nathaniel Wood, $8,900. Let's see here. He hasn't fought for almost a year and a half. Scoring 3.9 points per minute in his 6 UFC fights and averaging over 100 points per win. That is 7th best on the entire card. He does outscore his opponents by 1.55 points per minute. Excuse me, I got some in my throat here. Has coming in just $267 over his average salary. Average value of 9.28, so very good average value. Only giving up 85 points when he loses to his opponents. Vince Morales on the other side, 7,300. He is 3-3 in his 6 UFC fights. Scores many points less than Nathaniel Wood per minute. 2.16, getting outscored 2.53. Getting outscored by 0.37 points per minute. Not a good look. Coming in 400 under his average salary, which is good because does not have the stats to back up anything much higher than that, as he scores only 77.5 points per win. Vince Morales giving up 81 points when he loses. That is the 3rd best number on the card. So neither of these guys giving up a ton of points when they lose. That is notable. Scoring by method, let's see. When Nathaniel Wood wins by sub, 104 points. When he wins by decision, almost 90. Whereas Vince Morales wins by decision, only 60 points. 110 when he wins by knockout. Wood giving up only 77 when he gets knocked out. That is 2nd lowest on the card. Very good. Yeah, Vince Morales decision fights do not score well, turns out. Nathaniel Wood putting up over 100 in 2 of 4 wins and over 110 in one of those wins. Meanwhile, Vince Morales putting up over 90 only one time, giving up over 110 in one of his 3 losses. Morales is susceptible to takedowns, 0.42 points per minute scored on him, whereas Nathaniel Wood scores almost exactly that offensively with takedowns and has a bit more control time than Morales tends to give up. But Nathaniel Wood striking second highest striking pace on the entire card, 2.94 points per minute, whereas Vince Morales only 1.78, giving up less than 2 points as well per minute. So that is about average for the card. We'll have to see how this one plays out. I do like Nathaniel Wood to win, but 8,900 is kind of an interesting salary. It's a bit high, but he does average triple digits in his wins, so that is a good sign. Averaging 53 points in bonus points per win. Morales is right about there with his opponents, or when Vince Morales loses, I should say, he gives up 43 points in bonus points. Gives up a ton of striking points, though, in losses. Both guys do. Relevant fight stats. Nathaniel Wood, much better on paper as far as statistics go. I mean, the volume, 6.28 shots per minute. Meanwhile, Morales is eating over 4 strikes per minute. Takedown defense pretty good for Wood, not so good for Morales, but that's probably a pretty small sample size. Wood controlling 68% of the grappling time he's involved in, while Morales controls only 20%. Morales does have the much better strength of schedule, both guys being 3-2 in their last 5, but Morales is about 5, 6, 7 points higher in every single category, 14 points higher in strength of defeat over Wood. But the last 5 fight history or stats wise for differentials is a different story. Nathaniel Wood killing it. 2 strikes per minute differential over his opponents, almost a takedown per 15, almost 10% control time. I mean, almost 1.75 points per minute differential, while Vince Morales rather is negative in 3 of 5 categories over here. Wood only losses coming to Casey Kenny and John Dodson. Let's check out some graphs here. Wood well over his opponents, as we said, outpacing them significantly, but he is trending down while his opponents trend up. Meanwhile, Vince Morales is below his opponents, but trending up. So you do at least like to see that. Had a good score against Louis Smolka in his last fight. And then here are my projections from Computer Monk. And then the average DraftKings visual recap and aggregate career finish percentages. Much better graph. I mean, Nathaniel Wood dominating in every aspect of this graph over Vince Morales, except maybe the strength of victory here, which we did talk about. Vince Morales up by 0.8 points over Wood in that category. Other than that, it was all Wood, and here are the finishing percentages. I'm sure Computer Monk likes this to finish inside the distance. Some very high percentages of finishes in wins and in losses in their career, and in the UFC for that matter. Let's keep it moving. Corey McKenna going up against Elise Reed. Let's see here. McKenna, $8,800, my most hated salary out of all salaries, $8,800. Let's jump right into why. It does have a winning percentage of 71.74%. Only makes the optimal 15% of the time. Only makes the optimal in wins. So it has a 71% win percentage, but out of those, out of that very high win number, it only makes the optimal 21% of the time. Guys, that is the worst. One of the worst percentages. In fact, it's second lowest out of all salaries used. 21% optimal in wins. Guys, it is terrible. This salary pair, 88 and 74, 34.78% optimal in wins. One of them makes the optimal. Not a good number at all. In fact, lastly, the $8,800 salary scores only 87.5 points when it wins. That is dead last out of all salaries I track. Absolutely terrible. So, now that that's said, Corey McKenna scoring 3.54 points per minute. Good pace in her one UFC fight, but only ended up with 83 points in that fight, which is under the average score for this salary. So, I don't know how much of Corey McKenna I'm going to get to. I want to get to a decent amount, but, going against Elise Reed, because we could see a finish here, but I just don't know. I'm going to have to research this a bit more. She does put on a good pace. Elise Reed in her one UFC fight didn't even score 0.8 points a minute and gave up over 6. Over 6 points. She gave up 113 points against, Sajara Eubanks. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to look into this one. I might have to play the 8,800. I'm definitely not playing 74. Probably at all. McKenna, yeah, both these girls only have one fight, so we don't have a ton to talk about. Elise Reed giving up, like we said, 113. Gave up 1.31 points per minute in takedowns, 1.74 points per minute in control time. So Sajara, if you remember, just completely dominated Elise Reed for, 3.8 minutes. So first round finish, ridiculously overmatched fight, in my opinion. Let's see, how does McKenna score? 2.84 points a minute in just striking, and then a few control time points as well. She did show susceptibility to be taken down, but Elise Reed showed absolutely nothing in her fight. So I think this one is all McKenna. It's just a matter of how much am I going to get to her at that $8,800 price tag. Let's check out the strength of schedule. Very low for McKenna. And then you look over at Elise Reed, and it's even lower in 3 out of 4 categories. I'm not expecting much here. I kind of expect McKenna to finish. I mean, Kay Hansen, I could see why she didn't get finished in that fight. And in fact, it was a much closer fight than I remember, actually. I'll have to go back and watch that one. But Elise Reed, like I said, got absolutely dominated. Graphs are meaningless because there's only one fight. Here are my projections, obviously much, much higher for McKenna compared to Elise Reed, who had pretty much no output in her one fight. Interesting looking graph here, but only one fight from each girl. So what do you expect? And then the aggregate professional career finishing percentages, 50-50 in their wins and losses whether they finish or not. As far as professionally, yeah, so I'll probably be fading both sides of this fight, but I will be playing some McKenna just for the finish angle of this thing, because it's not a guarantee that the $8,800 does not make the optimal lineup, but pretty damn close. So I will be under to both sides of that one. Next fight, Jack Shore going against Timur Valiev. Man, you're telling me I get Jack Shore at $7,600? I am all in, no matter what. I don't even care about the opponent. I'm all in. Jack Shore is undefeated professionally, 15-0, 4-0 in the UFC. He scores 4.3 points per minute, third highest pace on the entire card, 97.86 points in a win. Guys, he only allows 1.23 points a minute so far. And that is only 12.5 minutes, but still second best opponent pace on the entire card for a differential of over 3, 10.84 average value. We're getting him $1,425 under his average salary. Sorry, I think my brain short-circuited there. I am huge on Jack Shore this week. I know he's going against Valiev. I know Valiev's 2-0 in the UFC, 18-2 professionally. Let's check his numbers out. $8,600, 3.86 points per minute. Scoring only 83 points when he wins. Red flag. 2.49 points per minute allowed for another big differential here. 7.86 value, and he's coming in exactly at his average salary, which is you're not saving, but you're not overpaying either. Let's check out Salary Voodoo, guys. This salary pair is the best, third best apparently, out of all of them. I absolutely love the $8,600 and $7,600 salary. When one of these salaries wins, they make the optimal 62% of the time, guys. That is the third highest number out of all salary pairs on in use. 62%. 76 wins 30% of the time. Makes the optimal 60% of those wins. That is crazy, crazy good. Timur Valiev, 71% winning percent for the $8,600 salary, but makes the optimal only 54% of its wins, which is a damn good number, but not quite as good as 60%. Either way, absolutely love this salary. No matter what happens, 8,600 makes the optimal 39% of the time. The fight order, fourth fight of the night, makes the optimal 61% of the time. The weight class is the sixth best to play. There are so many green means go flags on this fight. I absolutely love it. I'm going to be much higher on Jack Shore than Valiev, but I will be playing both sides of this fight for sure. This salary is fantastic. 105 points when Jack Shore wins by sub. 104 when Valiev won by unanimous decision. He did have a split in there as well, I believe, against Moicano. We'll find out here soon. Barcelos. Sorry, Barcelos. Jack Shore, let's see, 1.49 points in takedowns per minute. That is the highest pace on the entire card. Also has the highest control time pace on the card at 0.78 points a minute. Has some reversal time in there as well. just killing it. Also, happens to score just under 2 points a minute, which is almost top 10 in the, or on the card. Timur Valiev did show, you know, he has been taken down and controlled, but just a bit. These are top 5 numbers here as far as defense is concerned. Has shown some propensity for takedowns and control time, but I think he's mostly a striker. At least that's what he's shown in the UFC. He can switch levels and land those takedowns, though. Does, or has shown power as well. So Jack Shore will have to be careful. I just don't know if Valiev's the one. This is a damn good fight. This is a damn good fight. Let's see here. 100% takedown defense from Shore. We're at 50% from Valiev. So takedowns landed against 0.41 per 15 minutes. That is going to change in this fight, I guarantee. At least the attempts will. Strength of schedule, pretty good for Jack Shore in the 70s. That's where you want to be. But Timur Valiev, almost 80% opponent win percentage here. My goodness. 75 strength of schedule, looking great. In the last 5, though, the history and the stats, Jack Shore's differentials much, much higher. I mean, 3 points per minute differential over his opponents in his 4 UFC fights. That is insane. A 20 ass whoop index. That is crazy high. You want your chin index to be 0, which it is. Meanwhile, Timur Valiev, 2.91. That is a very high chin index. That means he has been knocked down. Who knocked him down? Barcelos twice in his last fight. I'm not saying Jack Shore, you know, he hasn't knocked anyone down in the UFC, but takedowns, I mean, what's that? 7, 13, 15 takedowns in 4 fights? Come on. I mean, this graph barely even touching his opponent here. Trending way up is Jack Shore. 3 points plus over his opponents. And then Timur Valiev well over his opponents. Trending up just the same. But, I mean, it's not just the same. Jack Shore's graph is much, much better. Just well above. That much more above his opponent's graph, I should say. Here are my projections. And then, yeah, look at these graphs here. I mean, Jack Shore, much higher real estate. The striking points per win is better for Valiev, and the strength of victory is better for Valiev. But everywhere else, it's Jack Shore by a mile. And then the professional win-loss finish rates, very low. So I'm sure Computer Monk thinks this one's going to go the distance. But there's been pretty much no losses, no finished losses for either guy. So, I mean, Jack Shore is undefeated, as I mentioned, and Valiev has 2 losses, but both, let's see, by decision. Yeah, right there. So 5 wins by knockout for Valiev and 2 subs. 8 sub wins in the pro career for Shore and 4 TKO wins. 2 sub wins in the UFC for Shore. I mean, I like the Shore side. Like I said, I'll be playing both, though. But I'll be much higher on Shore. Paul Craig going against Nikita Krylov. Light heavyweight fight. This one should be interesting. Paul Craig, $7,500. He's 7-4-1 in the UFC, scoring 2.8 points per minute and allowing just 2.64 for a positive differential, scoring only 95 points per win, but on this card, that is 11th best. He gives up over 101 points when he loses, though. Not great. He is right about his average salary, which is good news if you're on the Paul Craig side. Nikita Krylov, $8,700, hasn't fought in over a year, puts on the 4th best pace out of anyone on the card, 4.04 points a minute, gives up only 3.5, so a positive differential there. You are overpaying, not overpaying, but paying over his average salary by about $800 here. Does score the 2nd highest points per win, 111.79, so you cannot overlook that at all. A fantastic ceiling, 2nd highest ceiling probability. The 8,700 wins 73% of the time it's been used so far, making the optimal lineup in 36% of those wins. The 7,500, though, wins only 27% of the time, but makes the optimal 46% of those wins. Not a great salary pair to play, the 75 and 8,700, so you are taking chances against probability on this one. But, I mean, it's Paul Craig and Nikita Krylov. This is probably going to finish, right? Speaking of finishes, Krylov scoring very well in finishes. 121 when he wins by knockout, 106 by submission, and 105 in decisions. Krylov is a scoring machine in his wins. What kind of numbers are Paul Craig giving up here? 3 out of 4 losses, he's given up over 90. 2 out of 4, he's given up over 100. And 1 out of 4, he's given up over 110. So if you're on the Krylov side, Paul Craig has given up points for sure. Here's the problem. Prone to takedowns. Has a takedown game, but almost 1 point per minute opponent takedown points. Not what you want to see. Over half a point per minute for his opponents in control time. Meanwhile, Paul Craig getting out-controlled as well, but Paul Craig's like, he doesn't mind being out fighting off his back at all, as we've seen fight after fight after fight. Krylov, where he is scoring his striking and his knockdowns. Very high bonus point potential in this fight. Look, wins over 70, almost 80 for Krylov. Losses, almost 80 for Craig, and almost 60 for Krylov. So first and second round finishes all around the place for both of these fights. All around the gaff, as they say, right? Is that how you say it? Londoners? Paul Craig, decent stats here. Controls only 30% of the grappling time, but he does manage to slip those submissions in as we've seen over and over. Strength of schedule, 4-0-1 is Craig in his last 5 with a sub 70 strength of schedule. Not what you want to see. Krylov, meanwhile, much better strength of schedule all around, except for that strength of victory, a few points under Paul Craig. Let's see here. Krylov losing to Glover Teixeira, Jan Blachowicz, and Magomed Ankalaev. So he is fighting some killers, dude. His last 3 fights, 2 of them are champs or former champs, and one of them is Ankalaev, who didn't put on the most exciting fight against Santos, but pretty much dominated him for 25 minutes. I think we'll all agree there. 20 to 25 minutes. And I was looking at the wrong thing. Never mind. I almost said something crazy. Here are the graphs for DraftKings points per minute. A few pace graphs. Not great for Paul Craig. Up and down, barely over his opponents and trending down ever so slightly, while Krylov trending up and is well over his opponents by half a point per minute. Here are my projections for this one. A bit higher, as you would expect for Krylov. Look how similar these graphs are, with Krylov just sticking out more in DraftKings points per win and bonus points per win, striking points per win, etc. Paul Craig kind of has the left side of the graph short up, while Krylov has the more important, in my opinion, right side of the graph pretty much dominated. Finishes in wins professionally, 97% of these guys' wins have finished inside the distance. Can you imagine? In the UFC, 93% of their wins. So it's at 15, so 14 of 15 wins have come by way of finish. Even in losses, we're over 80%. This is for sure not going the distance. It has to end inside the distance, right? I mean, come on. It'd be insane if it didn't. For this one, like I just said, you have to play both sides. Someone's getting finished in this fight. I'll probably be pretty even exposure because I lean Krylov, but Paul Craig, I mean, how could you not like Paul Craig? At least his fighting style. So I'll be on both sides of that one, I think. Shamil Abdurakhimov going against Sergey Pavlovich. Heavyweight fight. What do we got here? $9,000 salary and 72. That salary pair is the second best for Salary Voodoo, guys. One of those makes the optimal lineup 62.8% of the time they win. You have to play the salary. It's a heavyweight fight, so you have to play that. That's the second best weight class when it comes to optimal probability. Heavyweight, 55.81% of the time they fight. One of them makes the optimal. This is also the sixth fight of the night. 53% of the time, someone from the sixth fight of the night makes it. You got to play this fight. And I think I know what side I'm going to be on. See if you can guess. Shamil Abdurakhimov, just over 2 points a minute. Pretty much what his opponent scores as well, so a break-even pace differential. Coming in $300, almost $400 under his average salary. Only scores 76 points in a win, guys, giving up almost 100 when he loses. Let's move it to Sergey Pavlovich here. $9,000. Coming in 200 over his average salary, so not breaking the bank. Second best pace on the entire card. I know he only has 3 fights and less than 8 minutes of UFC time, but in that 8 minutes, 5.5 points per minute. Gives up only 3 points a minute coming back at him. I mean, 2.45 differential. That is fantastic. Scores 107.73 points when he wins. That's 2 wins. When he lost, his opponent scored 108. So there are crazy points flying around Sergey Pavlovich fights. The $9,000 salary wins 63% of the time, and in those wins, it makes the optimal lineup 51.85% of the time. You gotta love that. The 7,200, wins only 36% of the time, but makes the optimal 3 out of 4 times it wins. You have to play this salary. I'm going to be all over Pavlovich this week. I'm probably not going to be going crazy with him because there are several $9,000, range fighters that I really like this week. He is one of them. I mean, Shamil is 40 years old, guys. He's closer to 41 than he is 40, for the record. Pavlovich, just under 30 years old. Guy hits like a fucking truck. Has the highest power index on the entire card. Meanwhile, Abdurakhimov has one of the lowest chindexes on the card. He's 40 years old. Like I said, come on, man. I mean, there's no way this doesn't end with Pavlovich or with Pavlovich knocking out Abdurakhimov. That's just how I see this fight. It'll be an easy play for me. I might have a little Abdurakhimov just for insurance, but in like 20 maxes, no, none. None. Strength of schedule is pretty even. Abdurakhimov 3-2 in his last 5 with knockout losses to Curtis Blades, knockout losses to Chris Daukaus, and here we got another heavy-handed heavyweight who has won his last 2 by knockout in the first round. His only loss, his UFC debut, to Alistair Overeem. Who makes their UFC debut against Alistair Overeem? Come on. Let's see. Pace trending way down for Abdurakhimov, pretty much even with his opponent. As we said, Pavlovich well above his opponent and trending up. Here are my projections, much higher for Sergey Pavlovich, as you would expect. And then the DraftKings visual statistical recap. This isn't even close. I know it's only 3 fights for Pavlovich. Abdurakhimov has 9 UFC fights, but come on, man. He's over 40. This is heavyweight. He's going to be slower than Pavlovich. He's not going to be hitting hard as Pavlovich. And his chin is more suspect than Pavlovich. I'm going Pavlovich here by knockout. Possibly first round. I guess I don't know. Sorry for scrolling all over. Well, yeah, both of his knockouts for Abdurakhimov second round. So, hey, he can make it out of the first. Let's keep the trend going. Second round knockout. Mike Grundy going against Makwan Amirkhani. Grundy, 8,500. What do we get for that? 2.7 points per minute, giving up 2.1 points per minute, scoring over 100 per win. That is only 1 win, so he scored 100 in his win. In his 2 losses, though, given up only 67 points per loss. That is the lowest number on the entire card. Fantastic. You are paying about $1,000 more than his average salary. And the salary pair here, one of these guys makes the optimal, 85 and 77, 66% of the time when they win. That's absolutely crazy. That said, I don't know what's going to happen in this fight. Both guys score decent when they win, and both guys don't give up a lot of points when they lose. So let's check out Amirkhani, 7,700, scoring almost 3 points per minute, giving up 2.6 for a positive differential. His value is about 0.8 points higher than Mike Grundy, and he is coming in $213 less than his average salary. 94 points per win, so not great. 14th out of, how many are ranked here? 22 ranked fighters on my card. Only 80 points against per loss. So when he loses, his opponents are scoring only 80 points. That is 12 more than Grundy, but the second best number on the card to Grundy, who is first. So both these guys not giving up a ton of points at all when they lose. I know Amirkhani gave up a ton last time when he lost to... Actually, it wasn't even a ton. He lost to Lerone Murphy, only gave up, 82 in his loss. So pretty good there. Let's see. When Amirkhani wins by knockout, 127. When he wins by sub, which is probably more likely, 93.45. Decision win, over 100. Grundy, his only win came via TKO, and he did score over 100, as we discussed. I mean, neither of these guys giving up any points. Is this going to be a super fade on this one? I mean, both guys can score from takedowns. I mean, 4th highest number as far as takedown pace for Grundy, 14th highest for control time, 2nd highest for Amirkhani with 1.37 points a minute, and 4th most control time. I mean, not giving up a ton of points that way. They're giving up their points via striking. I mean, both guys landing less than 1 point per minute on their feet. And Makwan definitely susceptible to being knocked down. So I don't know what's going to happen. This is a wrestler versus wrestler type fight, or I should say non-striker versus non-striker type fight. It's just going to, who can get their wrestling off? I mean, Grundy is 3 inches shorter. Does have the same reach, though, as Amirkhani. It's just going to depend on who can get their takedowns off, I guess, right? Let's check out the takedown defense from these guys. Around 50%, 57 for Amirkhani, so not great. I mean, grappling time controlled, 85% for Grundy, 65 for Amirkhani. I'm leaning the Grundy side just because Amirkhani, I mean, 3 losses in a row. I mean, this is lost city here. Both these guys, 2 losses for Grundy in a row, 4 out of 5 losses in Amirkhani's last 5. All, well, 2 of them by knockout and 2 by unanimous decision. Man, the Kirk fight was close, but none of the rest have been very close. And Grundy losing to Venata, which was a very close fight, and then, you know, undefeated Movsar Evloev. So this is going to be interesting. I'm leaning Grundy, but you just don't know. Grundy, out, as we said, outpacing his opponents, trending up. Opponents also trending way up. Meanwhile, Amirkhani trending up, which is a good sign, while his opponents trend down. So there we go, a good graph from Amirkhani. Here are my projections. Not great from either side. And then the visual statistical recap with Grundy winning most of the categories you want to see. Amirkhani with the outright win percentage and the grappling points, surprisingly. I guess not that surprisingly. And then the aggregate professional and UFC career finishing percentages. Pretty high as far as wins, not so high as far as losses. So we'll have to check out at the end what Computer Monk thinks about that as far as finishing inside the distance. But I do like this salary pair. But man, I guess I'm going to be higher on the Grundy side. I don't know if I can have much Amirkhani. At least with Grundy, you're getting the possibility of scoring triple digits. I mean, Amirkhani needs... Oh, God. Both these guys are so ground heavy. I don't know what to do. I'll probably have some of both since I can't decide. I'll probably be heavier on Grundy, though, at 8,500. I do love that salary. This one's going to be super easy, guys. Ilia Topuria against Jai Herbert. Put him in your lineup. Ilia Topuria is undefeated. He has fantastic stats. We won't get into a ton of them. 3.5 points per minute is a fantastic pace. 96.72 points per win isn't the best. Could be better, but I'm not complaining. The guy's undefeated. His opponents don't score anything against him. He's only $800 more than his average salary. In fact, $733 if you want to be exact. Jai Herbert, on the other hand, 1-2 in the UFC. Terrible pace, but scores 109 points when he won. I mean, he gives up almost 4.4 points per minute, which is even more than Topuria scores. And he is $867 less than his average salary. Let's get into some salary voodoo here, because I'm going to tell you to roster Topuria. Just put him in your lineup. Let's see. This isn't lightweight. 9th best weight class to play. Just under 50% probability of making the optimal. The 8th fight of the night, just over 50%. 50.98% of making the optimal. The salary, 9,300 wins at a 68.42 percentage. Makes the optimal in 34.62% of those wins. That does seem low, but in that range it is pretty high because it is so expensive. It's difficult. The more you spend, the more difficult that salary is to make the optimal lineup. That makes sense. The salary pair isn't great, but the $9,300 is carrying the load. I love this fight for Ilia Topuria. I think he's going to come in here and smash Jai Herbert. I don't think this should have even been made, in my opinion. I know we have a 4-inch height advantage and an 8-inch reach advantage, so that could be a problem here. Let's see how Ilia Topuria scores his points. 1.26 per minute in striking, 0.45 knockdown points per minute, over a point per minute in takedowns. That was surprising to me just because I always think of his, his knockdowns, but he is a submission machine. I mean, controlling 0.76 points per minute in control time, just scoring everywhere. Jai Herbert giving up mad takedown and control time points. And he has 3 fights in the UFC, guys. Giving up, what is that? 2.29 points per minute in just takedowns and control time. Ilia Topuria is going to get in right on this guy, take him down, ground and pound, or submission finish. I don't think this lasts very long. I think Ilia Topuria is going to have no problem with Jai Herbert. And maybe I'm wrong, and that's totally fine if I'm wrong. Been wrong several times before. I don't think so in this case. I think Ilia Topuria gets it done. I think he gets it done early. I mean, third round decision for his fight against Zalal, scoring only 78 points. But since then, 112 in a first round win over Jackson, 99 in a first round win over Hall. Obviously, he's not going to try to take Hall down or Jackson down. Those guys are crazy wrestler, jiu-jitsu players. So you're not really trying. You'd rather strike with them. So he showed no takedowns so far. I think he's going to show it in this fight. He has the ability. I mean, he took down Yusuf Zalal 5 times. Guys, Trinaldo took down Herbert twice. Moicano took him down 5 times. Topuria is going to take Herbert down. He's going to score a ton of points. And all that says to me, Moicano taking Herbert down 5 times in less than 2 full rounds, is Herbert can get up, which is what we want. Let him get up and let Topuria take him down. Rinse and repeat. Take him down. Pay off that $9,300 salary. I will be all over Topuria this week. Check out these projections here. I mean, then this graph we have Herbert, obviously, in his one win, he scored 109 points. So this is a very small sample size. Topuria has a very good graph here. Could be better, especially the strength of victory. And maybe the... in fact, Herbert does have the distance striking, but these are all per win. So if you take out the losses, Herbert has 1 fight where he did very well. Topuria has 3 wins in that category. So, I mean, finishes and losses, 100% of the time, Herbert's been finished. Herbert has lost, rather. He's been finished. Tons of finishes in wins, guys. This one's not going the distance. Put Ilia Topuria in your lineups. Unless you think Jai Herbert spoils this guy's perfect record, then you put Herbert in. I won't have any Herbert. Strictly Topuria, and I'll have quite a bit of him. Molly McCann going up against Luana, Carolina. McCann, $8,400. What do you get for that? 3.19 pace. Points per minute. That is 10th best on the card. Gives up 3.46. However, that is not a good look. She's coming in right at about her average salary, just $29 higher. Has an okay value, less than average. 94.38 points per win. 12th highest on the card. 108 or 100.88 when she loses. That is a huge number, especially in that division. Luana, Carolina, 7,800. She is 3-1 in the UFC. 2.95 points per minute, so a few points under Molly McCann. Gives up only 2.52 points per minute. She does have that positive differential that you do want to see with your fighter. She is coming in $25 less than her average salary. So both of these women valued right at where they've been priced this entire time, pretty much. Luana, Carolina. Where am I from all of a sudden? Luana, Carolina. Get your ass over here. 75 points per win, giving up 94 points per loss. So guys, here's the, I mean, McCann does score pretty well when she wins. Carolina only 75. So both giving up a ton of points when they lose is kind of what I was going to say. The salary voodoo here, not great. Let's see. Actually, it's not terrible. I mean, the 8,400, here's one, 8,400 salary wins 48.89% of the time, and the $7,800 $7,800 salary wins 46.81% of the time. So both under 50% win percentage. But when 8,400 does win, it makes the optimal 50% of the time. Now, women's flyweight, this is what I did want to mention. Women's flyweight has the highest percentage of making the optimal lineup out of all weight classes. I know that could be surprising, but when they fight, someone from that weight class makes the optimal 57.45% of the time. That is higher than any heavyweight fight, higher than any bantamweight fight, light heavyweight fight, any of the ones you think finish a lot and make the optimal. Women's flyweight has a better percentage than that. Scoring per minute, I mean, like we said, not a ton, or not per minute, but McCann has scored over 90 in 3 of her 4 wins, over 100 in just 1 of those wins, and given up over 110 in 1 of her 3 losses. Carolina on the other side, or Carolina, I'm sure it's not Carolina, scoring only over 101 of her 3 wins. So not a ton of points in these fights. I'll probably be fading this fight in general, as I do think it goes to decision. Just not too. I mean, I'm looking forward to the fight. I want to see Molly Meatball McCann fight in London, so that she brings that crazy high energy. It's going to be fun to watch. I'll be rooting for her as well, but I probably will not be rostering either of these fighters in DraftKings. I mean, she did score 109 points when she won over Diana Belbita back in 2019. That is pretty interesting. And then Cachoeira, when Carolina fought Cachoeira, she did score over 102. Since then, though, pretty low scores. Here's a graph for pace. Trending down is Molly McCann and under her opponents, and the exact opposite on the Carolina side. Projections right there. And then the almost identical visual statistical recap. Very interesting, with McCann edging out the strength of victory and win percentage, and then Carolina the striking points, average value, etc. And then very low numbers, as you would expect, as far as finishing percentages go in wins and losses. But we have no UFC finish wins in the UFC from either of these women so far, and that is out of 7 fights. No finish wins. So I do expect this to go to decision, and I will be fading both when it comes to DraftKings. If I have to play one, I guess I'm playing McCann because she scores better per minute and she scores better in wins. But she's more expensive, so there you go. The return of Gunnar Nelson. Hasn't fought in almost 2.5 years, taking on Takashi Sato, another name we haven't heard in well over a year. I don't know what to think about this fight, man. Gunnar Nelson, $9,200, hasn't fought in 2.5 years. I'm a fan, but what is the salary? $9,200. He scores just over 2 points per minute. That's it. That's the lowest out of all ranked fighters I have on my card. 94 points in a win is what he puts up. Gets outscored by almost half a point per minute, and he's $800 or $740 more than his average salary. What are we doing here? Takeshi Sato on the other side, 7,000, 2.28 points a minute, 112 points when he wins in his 2 wins. So scoring with big early finishes. I think one of them was Jason Witt in under a minute, so he got that bonus win, 25 points for under a minute, so that boosts his score right up there. And you're underpaying, or not underpaying, but you're saving $1,000 on Takeshi Sato compared to his average salary. I mean, the 9,200 does win 72% of the time. It makes the optimal 34.5% of those wins. Takashi Sato on the other side, the salary of 7,000 only wins 26.19% of the time. Gunnar Nelson not even scoring over 100 points when he wins by finish, 98 on average by submission win, 68 points when he wins by decision. That's it. I mean, what is going to happen in this fight? So you're either going to get one of these guys finishing the other super early, and you're going to be underexposed. I'm going to be underexposed, so I'll be missing out. Or the more likely scenario is that this goes to decision, winner scores 80 points, and I don't waste any salary. So I have to try to decide how I'm going to weigh those two things. Because as you can see when they win, I mean, 72 bonus points per win, 92 for Takeshi Sato in his 2 wins. I don't even know what to do here. Strength of schedule is weird, but decent, with Gunnar winning 2 of 5 categories and Sato winning the other 2. Last 5, 2-2 for Sato, as we said, 2-3 for Gunnar, losing to Ponzi, Edwards, and Gilbert Burns. So, that is decent competition. Wins over Joban and Cowboy Oliveira. Sato losing to Baiza and Bilal Muhammad. Again, 2 decent guys, especially Bilal, beating Saunders and Jason Witt, like I said, in under a minute. But that Saunders win, second round KO, only scored 92 points. We're scoring 94 for Gunny in his sub, 85 in a sub. See, even a finish isn't going to guarantee anything. So I'm probably going to be pretty low on Gunnar Nelson, actually, unless he gets that first round finish over Takashi Sato, which probably is not going to happen. I mean, Sato's been subbed in 2 of his UFC losses, but later in the fight, you got to wear him down a bit. And Baiza, I mean, that's no joke. Bilal's no joke either, so you got to wear down Sato a bit. So I think I'm going to be big fading Gunnar Nelson this week. I don't see why I would play him. 2 years off. The probabilities of him finishing Sato in the first round after landing a takedown, you know, first round victory. That's about what, over 105 points. I don't know, man. I think you gotta, both guys are gonna have to wear the other one down. Oh, here are my projections. And the DraftKings visual statistical recap. Much better graph here for Sato, but Nelson has the more experience, so this graph is more solid. And then Gunnar Nelson, or I should say aggregately, both guys finishing at almost a 90% rate in their wins. I mean, incredible. Pretty low in losses, maybe about 50%. I just think this one goes to decision, guys. I think we're going to be overpaying. Like I said, unless you think Gunnar Nelson wins by submission in the first round, or if you think he's going to knock out Sato in the first round, then go ahead and put a ton of them in your lineups. But at 9,200, I'm going to be getting to guys like Topuria. I'm just going to pay $100 and take Topuria instead. I mean, Gunnar Nelson just does not score well, so I'm going to be fading both in this fight. I'll probably have more Sato than Nelson, to be completely honest. Next fight, Paddy Pimblett, Paddy the Baddie, going up against Rodrigo Vargas. 9,400 for Pimblett. He is the highest salaried fighter on the entire card. What did we get? Well, in his one and only fight in the UFC, he made the optimal lineup, scored 6.5 points a minute, 119 points in the win. Did allow almost 4 points a minute back at him, but that value is too crazy to ignore. He is $1,100 more than he was last time. Rodrigo Vargas, or Kazula Vargas, as you may know him, $6,800. That is $233 lower than his average salary. He is 1-2 in the UFC with a pace of 2.75 points per minute, getting outscored. But with that pace, 2.88 for a negative 0.13 differential, scoring only 78 points when he won and giving up only 90 when he loses. I'm going to keep this one short. Paddy's probably going to knock this dude out. I mean, Vargas has never been knocked out, so I guess I can't say that, but everyone thinks that Paddy's going to knock this guy out. You're going to have to play some of Paddy Pimblett, even at 9,400. The salary is not great. It wins 78% of the time. That's fantastic. But when it wins, it only makes the optimal lineup 44% of the time. It's just a bit too expensive for the most part. It's not like a 9,600 or anything. I'm not saying stay away like I did with Ankalaev. You're welcome. But 94, it is a bit expensive. That said, I will be rostering Pimblett in a few lineups. I mean, he put up 4.25 points a minute just in striking. That does not count the knockdown. That's a separate category. 4.25 points per minute just in striking. And how long was that fight? Yeah, over 4 minutes. So that's an insane pace to put on. His opponent did show the ability to take him down, but Rodrigo Vargas has not shown the ability to take many people down at all, scoring only 0.15 points per minute in takedowns and 0.24 points per minute in control time. Outstriking his opponents, as you would expect when you see poor takedown numbers like that, but nowhere near what Paddy Pimblett was doing. He was eating shots too, don't get me wrong. But Kazula has shown no power in the UFC so far, thus far not knocking anyone down in any of his 3 fights. Taken down 6 times though. I'm not sure what Paddy's wrestling game is. I'm going to have to investigate that after this video. But he didn't need it, obviously, against Luigi Vendramini. He's just out there swinging and banging. I think that's kind of more of how he leans. Strength of schedule, pretty good for Paddy Pimblett, actually. Not too bad. 93 strength of defeat is his best number. Rodrigo Vargas on the other side, right around 70, with also a decent strength of defeat at 80. Let's see here. I mean, yeah, Pimblett threw 50 strikes in, under 4.5 minutes. And he got taken down. Here's the pace. We'll skip the one for Pimblett, only 1 fight. But Vargas getting outpaced, but trending up. That is what you like to see. Here are my projections, much higher, obviously, for Paddy the Baddie. And his graph, as you would expect, much, much bigger than Rodrigo Vargas. And then the aggregate professional career finishing percentages and UFC career finishing percentages, pretty high in their career as far as finish wins. And then finishes and losses. They're not out here getting finished hardly at all. So, I think this goes one of two ways. I think this is a classic Paddy decision, and he doesn't score very well because let's see, 6 of his fights have gone the distance, 6 of 20. So 30% of his pro fights have gone the distance. Same with Vargas, 31% of his pro fights have gone the distance. Or this is going to be Paddy finishing Vargas in like the first round. I don't think Vargas finishes Pimblett probably. I know a lot of people are hoping for that. I don't care either way. But I will have Pimblett rostered. I probably will not have Vargas rostered. That said, I'll be much higher on Topuria still at 9,300 than I will be on Paddy Pimblett at 9,400. At least I'm planning on being like that anyways. Co-main event of the evening, and we are 55 minutes. Perfect. Arnold Allen going against Dan Hooker. I am so excited for this fight. Arnold Allen, 17-1 professionally, 8-0 in the UFC. Dan Hooker, 21-11 as a pro, 11-7 in the UFC, but Dan Hooker, fan fucking favorite. This guy's like Paul Felder in that way. He is coming to fight no matter what. Arnold Allen, $8,000. What do you get for that price? Well, you get pretty low numbers actually for a guy that is such that's going around beating everybody he's facing. 2.26 points per minute, very low. Only giving up 2.25 though. So with a low pace, he's still not getting outscored. Very important. 66 points in his wins. This is 8 fights, guys. 66 points. This is the lowest number I have out of my ranked fighters on the card. He's coming in $6,000 cheaper than his average, or $600, sorry, cheaper than his average value, which is fantastic. Let's see, Dan Hooker, 8,200, 3.43 points per minute, so over a point, almost a point and a quarter more than what Arnold Allen puts up. Also a positive differential of 0.72 points per minute, scoring just under 100 points a minute, 99 per win, 99.85. Coming in 7,700 or 77. Wow, I'm making all kinds of speaking errors all of a sudden. $77 under his average salary, gets a decent value, the 7th best on the card. I mean, these are great numbers from Dan Hooker at that price, especially. His chin, both guys' chins have been tested. They've both been knocked down in their career. Dan Hooker has been TKO'd in his career, whereas Arnold has not, but he has been knocked down in the UFC. Both guys with decent power as well. And then the ass whoop index also pretty good for Dan Hooker. Arnold Allen doesn't get out of the 60-point range in a submission win or decision win. That is a huge problem for me. Dan Hooker, much higher numbers, split decisions, and KO, TKO. Even when Dan Hooker wins by sub, only 80 points. So some very low submission numbers here in this one. Arnold Allen has never, not one time in 8 fights, scored over 90 points. Big fade. Big fade. Has not ever once scored over 90 points in the UFC. Could he do it for the first time against Dan Hooker? How many does Dan Hooker give up? 97 when he loses. I guess. But 8 times he has yet to score over 90. Just to put that in perspective, Dan Hooker has scored over 90 in 10 of his 11 wins in the UFC. 90%, almost 91%. 0% for Arnold Allen, 91% for Dan Hooker. Meanwhile, Dan Hooker has given up over 90 points. What is that? 5 of 7 times he's lost. 71%. So a ton of points here. Arnold Allen scoring pretty much from everywhere. Pretty low numbers across the board to average, but he is scoring in every category. Dan Hooker better in every single category except for the takedown points per minute. As you would expect, Dan Hooker not really looking for takedowns all that much. And I doubt we're going to see that here unless he starts to get rocked. I mean, yeah, when Arnold Allen wins, only 33.75 bonus points on average. Very low numbers. Good strength of schedule, 73, 74, and no defeats. But Dan Hooker's is better except for that defeat category where he has had defeats in his past 5, obviously. He is 2-3. But the win percentage from his opponents are about 5-6 points better. And Arnold Allen, who's he beating? Yusuf, Lentz, Melendez, Rinaldi, Mads Burnell. Meanwhile, Hooker losing to Mokaev, Chandler, Poirier, beating Hackprast and Felder. Here are the graphs for pace. Trending up is Arnold Allen, right at his opponent's pace here, as we discussed, I think 100th of a point difference. And then Dan Hooker, he is barely trending down, actually, while his opponents trend up, but he is currently outpacing them by 0.72 points per minute. And here are my projections for this co-main event. Pretty low, as we just said. I'm very excited to see this fight, to see how it plays out. Not excited for this fight for DraftKings at all. Some interesting graphs here. As you would expect, Allen, no points for finish wins, pretty much none. DraftKings points per win, very low. I mean, he's getting buried in this graph, absolutely buried. And then the aggregate career and UFC finishing percentages, pretty low. I'll have to look to see what Computer Monk says about this one, but it's about 50-50, I think, that it goes to decision. Like I said, I'm going to be very low on Arnold Allen. I'm very high on this fight in general. I'm very high on Arnold Allen as a fighter and as a person. Both of these guys, they seem like, good dudes. I don't really want to see either of them lose, but as far as DraftKings goes, I will have probably 0% Arnold Allen. I mean, I've never seen a 0 in a percent wins. You can't see my cursor. Percent wins greater than 90 DraftKings points. I've never seen it at 0 with that many UFC fights. That is crazy. Main event of the evening, guys. Alexander Volkov going up against Tom Aspinall. Sneaky fight here. I mean, not sneaky in that, but just sneaky for DraftKings. Alexander Volkov, 7,900. 2.87 points per minute. He is outpacing his opponents by almost a quarter of a point. You are getting a bit of a deal on him, paying $327 less than his average salary. He does only score 85.5 points per win, Alexander Volkov. Meanwhile, when he loses, he gives up 111.74 points. Here's the big one that is going to have me rostering him in cash lineups. 47.65 points in a loss. That is over 3 losses. That's the highest number on the card. This is a 5-round fight, so if Aspinall could very well win inside the distance. Volkov has been finished inside the distance 1 time in his 11 fights, and 2 times out of 43 fights. 4 times out of 43 fights he's been finished professionally. That's it. So if you think Aspinall finishes him, which is a possibility, that's fine. I tend to think this goes longer. I tend to think this might go to decision, and the longer it goes, the better it is for Volkov. I just think that if it goes long and Volkov doesn't get the win somehow, he could still score okay for cash. That's kind of the point I was trying to arrive at, and 7,900 is a fantastic salary for Volkov. I mean, you get a 5-round heavyweight fighter, $300 under his average salary, fantastic. And then Aspinall, you get a top prospect at heavyweight, 4-0, $800 under his average salary. This is fantastic for either side of the fight. You get to play your fighter, and you don't have to break the bank for it. Aspinall's numbers are astronomical. They should call him Tom Astronomical. 6.17 points per minute, highest pace on the card by far. Gives up only 1 point per minute back at him for a differential of 5.15. That is fantastic. Scoring 108 points per win, and that's over 4 wins. The top average value on the card, almost 12. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? But the problem is, this is Alexander Volkov. This is a huge step up in competition for Tom Aspinall, who has wins over the likes of Sergey Spivak, Andrei Arlovsky, Alan Badeau, and Jake Collier. Not exactly world beaters. Meanwhile, Volkov's been fighting Curtis Blades, Walt Harris, Alistair Overeem, Cyril Gahn. Ever heard of these guys? Marcin Tybura. Come on, man. I think Tybura tried to take down, what did Uncle Weezy say yesterday? Tried to take down Volkov like 14 or 16 times. Wasn't able to do it. Like, this is going to be Aspinall on the feet early, first or second round, or this is going to be Volkov dragging this out as long as it takes to either get that, somehow get a finish win in like the 3rd or 4th, 5th, maybe. Probably 4th, 5th. or more likely go to decision. So I opened the week loving Tom Aspinall for DraftKings. How could you not? 8,300 for this kind of scoring potential. You have to play this. You have to play Tom Aspinall. That's not a question. 91.25 points in bonus points just when he wins. You have to play Tom Aspinall for the fact that he could put Volkov down. It could happen. But you also have to play Volkov for that grinding 5-round decision type fight where he could even land a couple of takedowns himself. I know he doesn't really do that. He did land one on Curtis Blades, however. I think for cash, you can play Volkov here pretty well. And I think for GPPs, you put in Aspinall. And that's just kind of how I see this one. Here are my projections. 130 for Aspinall on a decision win. That's just because of his pace. As I said, he almost scores 7 points a minute. So that's a big part of this projection right here. Obviously, this is a 5-round fight. This is 5 rounds worth of projections. 84 for Volkov in 5 rounds is what this projects. So not a great number in a decision. Visual statistical recap. Here you go. Aspinall with the much higher graph, as you would expect, for all the reasons we just talked about. And then the aggregate professional and UFC career finishing percentages very high as far as wins and less than 50% in losses. So, like I said, Volkov for cash, Aspinall for GPP. That's kind of how I see this thing. I think Volkov, I just don't like it for GPP. Both guys have made the optimal 1 fight each since January 1st, 2021. But yeah, that's just kind of how I see this fight. All right, guys, we did it. Let's check out Computer Monk's pick. CM Monk, who do we have this week? Oh, and I did want to mention CM Monk for the year. I always give my picks. I don't give my results ever. So we're not doing too great. 59 out of 98. Now, to me, that's a terrible number. But then, 60%, I think that's low. But then I try to put it in perspective. This is a computer who doesn't know anything about fighting, picking fights. And he's, over 50%. That's fantastic. But we're over 60% now. And the guy who programmed him to pick those fights is me. And I'm a fucking idiot, yo. I'm dumb. Like, I'm not as dumb as some people, but I'm not as smart as some people. And we're at 60%. So I changed my mind on that. I got a positive outlook. I think that's pretty good. I anything over 60, I want to keep it over 60 for this entire year. So we dipped down a few weeks ago. We did hit a 59, but we brought it right back up last week and the week before. So anyways, I don't know. This one is just because Mokaev has no stats. This is purely odds related, or the stats from Cody Durden related. I have stats for Durden, none for Mokaev. So Computer Monk is picking Durden because it sees a big fat 0 for Mokaev. So it's picking Durden. I'm picking Mokaev, but I like Durden for DraftKings actually. By finish, Nathaniel Wood by finish, Corey McKenna decision, Jack Shore decision, Nikita Krylov finish, Sergey Pavlovich finish, Mike Grundy decision, Ilya Topuria finish, Luana Carolina decision, Gunnar Nelson finish, Patty Pimblett decision, Dan Hooker decision, interesting, and Tom Aspinall finish, very interesting there. So that is how CM Monk is seeing these fights so far this week. Guys, we did it. We absolutely did it. We made it through all 13 fights for UFC London coming up this weekend. I don't know the date off the top of my head. The 19th, March 19th, 2022 in London, as we said, headlined by Volkov and Tom Aspinall. There are some absolute banger fights on this card, as we discussed, so do not miss it. And now that you have all the tools at your disposal, get that fight tape in and put your lineups in, baby. I got a good feeling about this week. Let's get out there and get some of these takedowns. Again, check out teamriserfall.com. Be sure to check out the Pub Sports Radio show tomorrow night for DraftKings, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time. Check that out with me and the boys. And then Friday, MMA Engine. Monk and Lose Happy Hour. Sorry, my brain short-circuited there. But check out MMA Engine for everything else. I'm releasing a salary voodoo video tomorrow, Wednesday, where I will pick 3 fights and we will go through the salary voodoo for them. It is a fantastically fun time. So be sure to check that out. I got nothing else, guys. as usual, I want all of you to enjoy the fights. So enjoy. We'll see you next time.